Hey there, and welcome to Inbound Insights and Answers. This is Marguerite Ensko, your inbound marketing ninja, here to answer your question. How does inbound marketing reduce the cost of client acquisition or reduce the cost of getting a new customer? If there is any number that you need to be measuring in your marketing in terms of a key performance indicator, this is the figure you need to look at. But here in particular, we're going to talk about how does inbound marketing actually make a difference compared to other traditional forms of marketing. And to answer that question effectively, we really have to look at two types of cost: fixed and variable. I know you've heard this before. This is pretty standard information when it comes to business. And in marketing, when we look at fixed costs, what we're really considering are things that are predictable or that we know are going to happen, that we have to spend money on, like we know we need to build a website. That's a cost that's going to give us a long-term return on our investment, right? It's worthwhile to do that. It's going to work for us for 2 to 3 years. And we know that it's going to be sizable. So this is a great example of a fixed cost in marketing. Now, variable costs, these are things that maybe you don't know so much about until you actually do them. So a lot of advertising, it's not easy to predict how well that's going to perform, if you need to do more to get the results you need or less. And also, it may be that you have to wait till cash flow comes in until you can really put some money into something and get some results. But when we're spending money on variable cost of marketing, we're really looking for a quick return. We want to see immediate benefits. And so this is just two great ways to break down these terms that we understand pretty well. And let's look at these actually applied to some real life scenarios. So we've got a traditional marketing here that has, in general, a low fixed cost to it, but high variable costs. So for example, like this brochure, you can spend some money on getting the brochure generated, right? Some graphic design and the right copy, but you're going to really spend a lot more money getting it printed. Sure, there's a few price breaks, if you get 1,000 versus 5,000, but it's not that much, okay? TV ads, radio ads, same thing. You spend a little bit of money, chunk of change on getting that ad prepared to go out, but you spend way much more money on your airtime. Bulletin boards or excuse me, large boards like this have some costs to get the initial billboard prepared, but it's renting the billboard that costs you money. Digital ads, pay-per-click ads, doesn't take you long to put the ad together, doesn't take you long to set it up. The money and expense goes into running that ad. Even your salespeople have high variable costs if they are commission-based. The more they sell, the more money or revenue you make, that's great, but also the more you have to spend or give to them to pay them for their work. All right? Now, let's look at a graph here. I think that does a good job of breaking down money versus exposure that's necessary to gain more revenue in your business. Now, this is just a diagram as an example. This is not to scale. There's no real numbers on here. This is just to help you figure it out in your mind. If you look at the bottom, you can see the line for fixed costs to gain more exposure is pretty flat. It's pretty low, like we've described. Now, variable costs, you can see it's got a pretty steep trajectory if we want to gain more exposure, going from the left to the right. And of course, the revenue follows that. Now, if we look at point A right down here, this is sort of, let's say, at the beginning of the marketing. We are not spending a whole lot in our fixed and variable costs in marketing. And what we get, just a little bit higher, of course, is our amount of revenue that we gain from that marketing. Not a lot of margin here, right, between the two. We need to make more money. Let's increase the revenue, grow our company, right? So we're growing our company, we're increasing revenue, but if you look here, the variable costs are going up too. That profit margin is not any greater. We're not getting the economy of scale that is really necessary to grow a business profitably. Now let's look at inbound marketing. High fixed costs, low variable costs. High fixed costs because you do have to put a lot of money into inbound marketing on a monthly basis, a regular basis, but you know what it is ahead of time. You know how many blog posts you want to write, how many pieces of content you want to author, how much time you want to spend on social media and publish out on social media, how many email blasts or campaigns that we want to do on a regular basis. Now remember, one email costs the same to send to 10 people as it does to 10,000 people. One blog post can be read by 20 people just as easily as 20,000 people. So you can see the scalability in here is immense, along with the automation that is available through tools like HubSpot and MailChimp and Nimble. These tools help speed things up in terms of you honing in on the most important leads or the most important activities that you want to nurture and move forward. Now let's look at a chart here, kind of like the first one, but this time with that inbound perspective. Now, if you look here where it has money to exposure, the variable cost instead is the one that's rather flat and low, because there's not a lot of surprises, not a lot of extra things that we have to be doing in our marketing. We have to consistently stay fixed on what we're delivering. 8 blog posts a month, 2 content offers a month, 10 hours a week on social media. I'm just throwing numbers out here as an example. And now look at our revenue, how it's skyrocketing, even though the fixed is staying very low. And if we look at point A over here, let's say at the beginning or near the beginning, we've got our marketing expenses down here at the bottom and our revenue, not a lot of margin, right? We're not making a lot of money here, but over time, as we are continuing our marketing, our revenue is growing with that economy of scale that I just described. And now you can see after point B, the margin of profitability is greater. So the 2 key factors here that we're talking about, if you want to lower the cost of client acquisition through inbound marketing, is you have to remember it is a combination of growth, but that overcomes the cost of the fixed cost of what it takes to deliver inbound. Now you're probably thinking, these are some fancy charts here. I mean, really, you're showing me charts. So how does this convince me of anything? And I don't blame you. So let's look at some data. This comes from a State of Inbound report from HubSpot. This was data collected last year on thousands of inbound marketing marketers, I guess you could say, and companies. And if you look at this, mid-sized companies, how they budget inbound versus outbound, companies that had less than $25,000, they tended more or less to do the outbound type of marketing. Some did inbound. Now, if you think about this, these are pretty small businesses that have that type of budget, and they may be local businesses, which makes a lot of sense. Local marketing is reasonable in cost because you are contained geographically. When you start moving out of a local region and you want to go statewide or nationwide and you're trying to do outbound marketing, the costs get absolutely ginormous. Now we have to do 15 trade shows instead of 2 here in our local area, right? So once you start going above 25,000 in a marketing budget, now inbound is becoming much more relevant. And then after that, it's the game changer for businesses. So it does correlate to a larger budget. Does it mean if you have a smaller budget, you can't do inbound? Not necessarily. It does mean, though, that you might be investing for a year or 2 into your marketing before you start seeing the profitability and results. But that's also because you believe that your company has much further to go in growth and possibility than what it is today. And that's the future that you have, or the vision that you have for the future. Now, this whole thing about making more money down the road, what does that mean? Well, let me show you some statistics, another set of statistics from the same report. The greater ROI from the previous year is the majority of what inbound marketers are experiencing. So it means that they are doing the same thing that they did last year, but they're getting more results. And that makes sense because it's a compound effect with blogging, for example. More content you have on your website from blog articles, the more relevant your website becomes to search engines. The more traffic you get, the more leads you can generate from that traffic. For those that experience lower return on investment than the previous year, is pretty small percentage. And even those that had about the same return on investment was not the majority. So you can see if you do it right and do it well, this becomes more and more meaningful as time moves forward. So I answered, hopefully, all of your questions you have about how inbound marketing reduces the cost of client acquisition. If you would like to make sure you know how to calculate this number correctly for your business, get this free ebook from my resource library on our website, the 6 Marketing Metrics Your Boss Actually Cares About. And stay tuned for the upcoming video. And the next question, is your website ready for inbound marketing? Now, please subscribe to our channel.